welcome back to the channel. We are going to be doing our first full stream workout on this video, and we are going to be going into the workout today is going to be deadlifts with some hamstrings, so mainly posterior work there, and we're going to do a big lift and then a couple supersets with some core. And then in the process of that, we are going to go over the story of David and Goliath. Now this is everybody knows the story of David and Goliath, but they don't know the fine details of it, and I think the fine details of it will actually make it even a greater story, and we're going to apply it to a lot of things that we can get out of life and a lot of the challenges that we face. But also, if we just really understand the details of that story, it'll actually make it resonate a lot more. So let's get into it. We're going to start out with a dynamic warm up and then right into our deadlifts. Let's get it. Warm up today is just going to be a regular RDL. So we're going to be doing barbell straight, empty, 10 reps, nice and easy. Just getting the posterior warmed up, working on loosening up the hamstrings. Okay, getting the back activated. We're going to do 10 reps here. Keep that bar nice and close to your legs. I think that was 10. Okay. After that, we're going to go right into a reverse hyper. Now, if you don't have the GHD machine here, it's also good. You can just keep doing maybe a barbell good morning, where your barbell's on your back and you're just doing kind of a same thing as an RDL, but you're working more there. Or you can lay on the ground and do a lying leg raiser. So you're laying on your back and both feet are just raising off the ground, trying to activate the hips and that lower back movement. And so let's do the reverse hyper though on the GHD. We got 10 reps here. Make sure your hips are on the top of the pad. 10 reps. Squeeze the glutes at the top. Nice and slow. Don't swing your legs. There we go, that was probably 10. Then we're just gonna finish with dumbbell or kettlebell single arm deadlifts. So on this one, it's 5 each side, working on keeping your shoulders level and also just starting to get into that deadlift movement. So, you know, anywhere between 30 to 60 pounds. If you wanna go a little bit heavier, that's fine. But the goal here is just to work on a regular conventional deadlift movement. So I'm going to do 5 on my right arm. So you can see my chest is up, my back is flat. This is a deadlift. This is not an RDL, it's a deadlift. Okay? As I'm coming out of this deadlift, I'm pulling my knees back, keeping my chest up. Okay? Then I'm going to go left arm. Keeping that same deadlift stance, don't let your shoulders dip. 5 of those. So we're going to do those 3 movements, and we're going to go through those 3 rounds. Okay? Let's get back to these RDLs, barbell RDL. One thing I want to talk about with David and Goliath, okay, as we're warming up here, is the backstory. Okay, so Samuel was actually a really important prophet and priest. And he was a great counselor to the King Saul back in this time in the Old Testament. So during this time, King Saul, basically God's favor, left King Saul, and he was tormented with an evil spirit, basically. So in the attempts to try to fix this tormenting that he was going through, this troubled mind, you know, trying to help the king asked for somebody to help, you know, come to his aid, and that would basically have some sort of, you know, healing music or healing atmosphere that could kind of help him get over this troubled state. So God actually spoke to Samuel and told him that you will go and find a king among Jesse's sons. Jesse had 8 sons. Now with these 8 sons, all of them were great the 7 of the olders were all great warriors, strong men, rightful to be king. And, you know, Saul basically asked for all of these men. Well, Samuel went straight to Jesse to find this one that God spoke of. And of the 7 sons that were presented to Samuel, he turned them all away. They could have been great kings, great strong men, but he actually turned them all away. And he asked him if there's any more. And Jesse said yes, he had one of his youngest sons who was working the sheep. Now keep in mind, this is young David, the youngest of 7 other sons who were strong, way more fit, way more agile, or able to take on any king's request. Okay, but Samuel, when he saw David, he knew that he was the one. And that's how David was presented to Saul to come to his court and give aid to his tormented spirit. Okay? So we're on our last set here for this RDL. Nice and easy. After this, we're going to go right into our deadlifts. 3, 4, 5. Okay. Take your time on these warm-ups. You want to get everything activated. Hamstrings warmed up. 4, 5. Good. That way we can go right into our deadlifts, ready to go. Now when David went to King Saul, he played the music. And he soothed his tormented soul, his spirit. But the Israelites were at war with the Philistines. And this is where David would make a name for himself. This was his true calling that God recognized. And it took years in order for this to happen. In order for this to actually get recognized as his true calling. So therein lies one key aspect right there, that this process took years and months into years for David to truly come into his own. But the point is that he went willingly with the faith because he knew that God was with him always. And he went right into it, into the counsel of the king, and did what he needed to do, did his job essentially, and he still prayed and still was a godly man, growing in his faith. And then when the time came, he was ready because he was prepared. So that's very important that we don't realize with this story. We miss some of those details when we just read through it. There was a lot of preparation that David did even before Samuel found him and brought him to King Saul. Now keep in mind, he was a brother of 7 older, huge, strong, skillful brothers. Now, I don't know about you, I've got an older brother. But when you have older brothers, that younger brother is usually the most competitive and sometimes the most strongest willed out there, because he's got to fight for his right above his older brother. So 7 older brothers, you got to imagine that dynamic with those other brothers. You know, David was, even though he was small and young, he was fierce inside, and God knew that. So, we'll go into more of this detail here of David and Goliath, but let's get into our deadlifts, okay? Bring the camera over. And this is our 3rd week, so we're at our heavy phase. And this one, you're just doing the deadlifts by itself. So we're going to be doing a couple warm-up sets to build up to a heavy set of 1. And that movement is just that wave cycle. So it's going to be a 1 heavy rep, explosive on the way up, 5 seconds on the way down. And then as soon as you're done there, we're going to go right into regular speed deadlifts, okay, inside the rack here at half of that weight. I'm going to set up, we went trap bar last week. Generally we'll stay to one bar, but I kind of was like switching up a little bit with the hex bar. We're going to stay with the regular deadlift, okay? The trap bar deadlift, you can usually get a little more weight. It's easier on your shoulders, easier for your back. So if you got a bad back, you're pulling out of a higher lift with the trap bar deadlift. So I definitely recommend that if the straight bar is not really conducive to your height or your back. So that being said, we'll do a couple warm-up reps here, build up to a heavy, my heavy set, and then I've got 3 sets of this. So I'll do 1 rep and then 6 reps. And I got 3 rounds of that. Each round I'm trying to build up heavier in my single deadlift. Really focusing on explosive deadlift with a 5-second descent on the way down. Deadlift position, you want your knee slightly over the bar. It's slightly different than everybody else. Depends on your limb length. So, you know, you got to find what feels comfortable with you, but you are pulling out of a slight squat. You're not straight leg deadlift here. And so it depends on your limb length and, you know, proportionate to your body size. But the key features here is you want to try to drive your knees back, keep your chest up, keep your tight back, keep your arms fully extended, okay, as you pull this bar. Okay, I'm just going to do a set of 5, warm up again, and then I'm going to hit another set of 5. Deadlifts are great. Posterior chain, overall nervous system. You're not going to build a lot of muscle deadlift. You're going to build a lot of power, a lot of nervous system strength, which is going to translate into everyday life, all these other movements. So if you're not deadlifting, I recommend trying to get to some sort of deadlift weight, whether it's trap bar with the deadlift or with the dumbbells or the regular bar. It's going to be huge beneficial for daily living, daily task, okay? Overall quality of life. Deadlifts are huge, okay? Just making sure that you're staying within the weight you need to stay. And I would say that, you know, up until sticky brand new bar, up until you're 60 maybe, you should be able to deadlift your body weight for 1 rep. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. The only reason why you are not able to do that is that you haven't trained accordingly, okay, or of just massive injuries from the past. But if you're healthy and able, that should be a good benchmark, okay? There's benchmarks for a lot of lifts that we should try to attain, and those should be applied in life so that you can be above baseline when you're living. Don't be at baseline, be above baseline. Okay, we want to set strength level. Let's do another 3 reps here. 3. Okay, so if you're following it along, you know, on your YouTube, you're listening in, you have your program in front of you, okay? And you should be able to follow along with your lifts and your movements, type in your weight with your program applied that's been provided for you for the day. Okay, so we'll get into this first set. We're going to hit 315 for our first set, and that's kind of towards my heavy end, you know. And then we're going to go about half that weight. So we'll set up at 155 for our speed deadlift, and we'll increase that because it's got to stay. We want to keep that roughly 50% of your actual weight that you're lifting. We'll set these up. And we'll set this up at 315. And we'll talk a little bit more about the next part of David and Goliath as it progressed to the war with the Philistines and the introduction to David, or introduction to Goliath when he came into the scene. So basically, David was helping King Saul, trying to soothe him, but at some point the Israelites, they were at war with the Philistines. And there was a battle that just came about, and the Philistines came, and all of a sudden their champion came forth, and this was Goliath, and he was a giant. Okay, they said he had 6 fingers, 6 toes, and he was 10 feet taller, 6 cubits, and his spear weighed 5,000 shekels, and I don't know what that is, but his spearhead weighed 60 shekels, which is like 16 pounds, which is just crazy. So if you convert that, I would say it's like, maybe around 90 pounds, I don't know, someone will have to do the conversion for that, but maybe a 90 pound, 100 pound spear, you know what I mean? That's like taking this weight right here, 100 and some pounds, and just hurling it through somebody. That's just unbelievable how big this dude was, okay? So he came forth, and he said that he wants the champion of Israel to come forth, and if he slays him, the war is over, and he who slays Goliath will be ruler over the Philistines. Okay, so he basically proclaimed that, and he kept coming forth into the front line, proclaiming who he was, and the Israelites were scared. And he did this for 40 days. He did this on and off while they were battling and skirmishing. He said if anybody wants to challenge him, that he would take them and destroy them and feed their bodies to the birds and the beasts. And it was nuts. Okay, so if you kind of paint that in your mind, going to battle and all these guys, and even the sons of Jesse were in this battle, and they were actually terrified. They didn't know what to do with this huge man, this giant that was proclaiming that in order to beat them, they had to defeat him. So let's get in this first set here. 1 rep, explosive up. 5 seconds on the way down. Then we got 6 reps here. Explosive. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. So we'll go up and weight there. I want to bump up. I don't know about 4 or 5 today, but we'll go a little bit heavier here. This should be, now the weight you're trying to get here is you're trying to find submaximal. So when we say like 70 to 90% of your max, you can also look at it as an RPE, which is 7 to 9 RPE should be your weight, meaning rate of perceived exertion is how you want to feel this movement coming through. So get to that 7 to 9, 10 being as hard as possible, so maximal. Get to that point, and that'll be your 7 to 9. So a little bit of long rest here. We'll have a long rest, and then we'll get into this next set. All right, second set here. Make sure that bar is nice and close to your shins. Get your back tight, big breath in before you pull. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bang, good. Now those need to be deadlifts, not RDLs, okay? So make sure we're focusing on deadlift with deadlift, not RDL on that one. Okay, so David and Goliath, 40 days and 40 nights. 40 days he's been proclaiming for some champion to come forth and slay him. And the Israelites are scared, not sure what to do. And, throughout this time, David was tasked just to bring provisions to the battlefield and bring, aid and whatever supplies and food to the soldiers of Israelite and aid his brothers. And each time that Goliath would come out and yell and proclaimed that he would take down, these heathens, and that they had the real true God on their side. The Israelites were scared. They were not sure what to do. And so it was in this moment that when David finally realized who this man was, this giant Goliath that was yelling, and David said, who is this uncircumcised man, a non-follower of God, claiming that he has the power to smite down God's people, the Israelites. And with that, David had no doubt in his mind that this man was so large, but he was so false. David saw right through it. Didn't matter how big he was. David saw right through this and understood that this man, I think we're just going to go for it. I think we're going to go for the 405 here, guys. Wait, what is that? It's a little heavy. 10, 5. We're going to go for the 25 on there, so pretty close. So David knew this. He came forth. He said, who is this man, that's proclaiming these things about God and these lies? David knew that he had God on his side and nothing would scare him. So you apply that to your life. And if you understand that usually these larger than life people that are proclaiming these lies and these fake things, that you can see right through it and understand that that is not by design. And you have to be above that and rise above that and meet the challenges head on until it is your time to, make an impact, or what you decide to do, with dealing with your Goliaths. Everybody's got these Goliaths that they deal with in their life, and you got to figure out how to deal with it, but you need God. And that's the premise of this story. Okay? Taking on a Goliath. Can you take on a Goliath? When you take it on, can you take it on with no fear? And understand that you got the power of God. Money. Okay, good. That felt pretty good. That was right around 9, 8. I'm feeling pretty good about that. So, as the war came to this point, this focal point of the battle, David, actually, when Goliath yelled, "Bring me a champion," David then stepped forth and said, "Who are you, this uncircumcised man?" It's basically someone who is not godly, is what they're saying with uncircumcision. Someone who's not godly is this false follower of God, and this false man who's telling these lies. We are, God's people, and I've got the power of God behind me, and I will take you and take you down. So David did that, and he proclaimed this, and he stepped forth. So he went to Saul, and he said that I'll take on this champion Goliath from Gath, and then they conversed, and Saul was not sure that it was going to happen, but when he saw the sureness of David's eyes, that he knew that this man was ready, this young man was ready to take on this giant. But he did doubt him. Okay, so we'll get into that here in a second. We'll set up for our first superset movement, which is going to be RDLs, 3 sets of 8, with a 3-second tempo on the way down. And then we're going to be supersetting with GHD sit-ups, 3 sets of 12 here. Okay, so same weight we left off for the speed deadlift. But RDLs, remember, your back is tight, bar is staying close to your legs, and your legs are staying somewhat straight. So it's more hamstring focused on this one and lower back. All right, so let's get in our first set of 8 here. Now I want you to remember that David was the youngest brother of 7. So even though people doubted him, he was very, very able. And he had a lot of skill and a lot of talent. He trained a long time. Now, he herded sheep. Okay, he was the shepherd of these sheep of his land. So he worked the land. He worked these sheep day in and day out. And he trained himself to fend off predator from his sheep. And he had to fight lions and bears, and he took them down with his hand. It says it in the Bible that he took these things down. So who is this man? He'll treat this man just like any other lion or bear. And he'll take him down. Okay? Which I thought was just great. I mean, he was just so sure of himself. And with the God, he gave him all the surety. So we're going to do 12 GHD sit-ups here. I like to go full touch to the ground. Okay, I want my butt slightly forward on the pad. Okay, so my back can kind of hug the pad and get a good full extension on this sit-up. I think that was 12. So, knowing that about David, he is he's more than skilled, more than talented to take on this giant. Okay, so Saul calls him in and says, we need to be ready to take on Goliath. You need to wear this armor, and wear this helm. And it was all heavy, stifling to David. He did not train in these things. So basically, as he was moving to take on this Goliath, the people wanted him to conform and wear what they wanted him to wear. And they had doubted him, so they said, you need to wear this armor, otherwise you're going to die. And he never trained in those things. So he never trained into those movements, or with that heavy weight and the cumbersome of the armor on him. So it was bogging him down. So he said, no, I will not. I did not train in this. I do not know it. It's not accustomed to what I'm doing. Give me a sling and some stones. So he found 5 stones in a river, and he got his sling. And he took that down to the battlefield. And Saul was just in disbelief. He did not have faith that he would come back alive. Okay? So the next part here is like the best part of when they finally confront each other, David and Goliath on the battlefield. And it's just this long anticipation in the book of Samuel that just builds up to this point where David takes on this man, and you get a real understanding of the power of God and the power of faith, and how not to worry, and how not to let even the biggest foe scare you away when others are scared. So let's get into the second set here. Keeping my shoulders back, keeping air in my lungs, staying tight, breathing in between each rep. That 3-second down, back up quick. It's good movement there. We're just doing a little contralateral movement here with the RDLs and the sit-ups. It's a little posterior, anterior superset here. This is great movement. Right. So David goes to the battlefield, and he's ready to take on Goliath. David trained his whole life for this moment, but he didn't know that this would be his moment. He just stayed faithful, did what he was good at, and he was going to come ready with the power of God. So he came. Goliath laughed when David emerged from the line, and he laughed at him, And he said, "This is your champion. I will take you apart and feed you to the birds and the bees." And he said, "How do you bring this pile of sticks? Am I some dog? How do you bring this pile of sticks to me?" Just completely insulted, which was his first mistake. And David said, "Who are you to come here and doubt the power of God and God's people? I will, with the power of God behind me, I will take you down with one stone, and I will cut your head and destroy you on the battlefield here today, and give your parts to the Philistines, and let that be known that God is here, and he is with me now, and that I would feed you to the birds and the beasts." He went straight back to him and went straight back to Goliath, not even scared. Goliath was there, running now out into the battlefield towards the Israelites. And all the Israelites were terrified, and they ran. Some of the biggest, strongest Israelites, they ran with fear of who this man, how big this Goliath was. He shook the earth when he ran towards them. And he was just so big. And he had a shield bearer in front of him that was prepared to take on with him. And David, as all the Israelites ran away, David ran towards Goliath. Okay? Just word for word, this is saying this here. It fully depicting this moment. He ran towards Goliath, and flung one stone with his sling, and struck Goliath right in the head, right in the middle of the forehead, and he fell unconscious. And he took him down. It's unbelievable. One stone. Okay? And that just shows you that we're all human here, no matter how big the foe. The grace of God is on your side. Let's go. Right. All right. So, with that, David took his sword, killed Goliath in the battlefield, and proclaimed everything that he said was true. And the Philistines ran with fear that there was no way, as this Goliath giant fell and collapsed in front of them onto the battlefield. All of them ran with terror. They knew that this was God's people, and the Philistines would not have the favor today. It's unbelievable. So from that, David would become one of Saul's generals in the army, and eventually hated by Saul, but eventually becomes king. And with all that, with not dealing with the Goliath, David would have never confronted his greatest battle that God wants us to confront. These greatest battles. And he would have never became the king that he should have become if he was scared because he didn't confront this battle that God wanted him to confront. And have the faith. I think we're at 12 here. Bang. So, confront your battles. Keep doing the work you got to do. And you will, there will be a plan for you. And just keep focused and keep your faith moving forward. So we're going to set up our last superset here, and we're going to conclude the story of David and Goliath, and give it a wrap-up post for you guys tuning in. All right, so our last movement here for the day is going to be single leg hamstring slides. So if you have a cable hamstring machine, or maybe a towel if you're on a hardwood floor, or if you have turf, you can get the valve slides. Here I grabbed a nice little furniture mover from Home Depot. Pretty simple here, it's like $10. Okay, it's actually perfect. You got a nice spot for your heel. really isolate this hamstring here in the single leg hamstring curls. We're going to go 10 each leg here, and then we're going to superset with Copenhagens, so it's going to be more of the inner groin and oblique core movement, 10 each side on that, off the box or a bench if you have that. So from here, we're going to get our hips up, okay, using your hands to stabilize. You're going to go 10 each leg. Go as far as you can, slow and controlled, pull back quick. Okay, if this is too much for you, start out by going up with your hips, going all the way out, eccentric, put your butt down, then reset. Sometimes you might have to start here, okay? But eventually, you gotta do the whole movement. Yep, that's good right there. Okay. And then our Copenhagens. Basically, your knees are bent around 90 degrees. Any sort of box or bench you can find, okay? And the other leg is just kind of out in front. And we're just driving, working on the inner groin. Drive the hips up, focus on obliques, okay, at the top. We're gonna go 10 each side. Okay, your knee should be on the bench or the box. Trying to stabilize as much weight as you can. If you get better at these and you want to just bring your foot out more, you can isolate your groin, but you're gonna get a lot of work starting here, and you don't need to get too much more advanced than this. Let your hips go all the way down, pull back with the groin and the obliques on the inside here. Good. It's great for avoiding injury and keeping that inner groin strong in your hips and your obliques. So, as we conclude that David and Goliath story, you know, a lot of things that we got to understand, details of that story, is that David went through a lot of preparation, okay? A lot of preparation to get to where he was. He trained, he did his job, okay? Even though it might have sucked, you know, he took care of sheep, did all the outside yard work, took care of the prairies, took care of day-to-day tasks, mundane as it is, knowing that at some point he will achieve what he's destined to achieve. But he may have not even thought that. He just had faith that whatever he's going to do it with the grace of God, and have a better understanding about how to just be fruitful and be happy in life, and no matter what your circumstances are. And if you choose to be that, and you do get chosen, you will be and you've done your task, you've done your work, you will be ready. You'll be prepared, and especially if you have the faith all the way through the whole scenario. He's never lost sight of faith. David never lost perspective while everybody else was scared. Everybody else lost perspective. David never did, and that's, you know, even though he was younger, smaller, less experienced, he was skilled enough and he was ready enough to take it on. And that is that's the moral of the story for David and Goliath. And it goes deeper, you know, with David and Saul and trials and tribulations there, but that's for another story, and that's for another time. Oh, I think that's 10. As we finish here today, I want you just to remember that no matter where you're at in life, if you choose to be happy and choose to be joyful about what you have that you already won, and the grace of God is with you, you will live a better life. And you keep doing your work, keep doing your job, keep doing your work. Eventually you'll be called. And at that intersection of faith and chance, which is timing, the divine timing, you will be ready because you've been prepared. So it's that intersection. You got to be ready for that intersection. you know, like the intersection of your core, I'm going to be ready. Anything I got to take on, I'm working on that intersection of my core. Always prepare, always be ready. That's why we work out. So if we really attribute today's workout to this story, to a lot of stories in the Bible, and just every aspect in life, you're doing the things that you don't necessarily have to do, but you need to do in order to stay in shape and be ready. Keep your health on par and stay aligned with the Lord. And when the timing comes, you'll be ready. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters. We're going to go right into this last set. We're just going to push it a little less rest. We're coming up to about an hour here, 45 minutes, 50 minutes here, which is typically our workouts are going to be about an hour long. You know, if I'm not ranting too much, but that's the goal here, is to get our workout in and get a daily message all in 1 hour. It's just packing everything in this hour. As we get busier, there's no excuses that we can't get these things in. You know, instead of going to the gym, hanging out with your friends, trying to Snapchat, all these things, go to the gym and listen to a book. Listen to a sermon. Bring a friend and help them on their journey to a better lifestyle, better health. Don't just go for your own selfish endeavors. Go to better yourself so you can help better other people. And while you're doing it, it's really easy just to go and tune out for an hour because I don't want to listen or do anything for an hour. I think that's an excuse. I think this is a very important time that you can be in tune with your work, and then in between your sets and your reps, focus on your growth. Focus on God. Focus on building what you want to build. Don't let anybody tell you can't, because you got God. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That wraps up today. So I'll wrap up with a prayer. Thanks for joining me on this, but dear Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to stay healthy and better ourselves in a time where we don't necessarily need as much physical labor at all to provide ourselves with shelter, food, and the resources we need to live. We need to make sure that we keep our bodies healthy, and they are our temple. And if we are not healthy, we're not able to share a message and spread the light and give the word to others that need to hear it most. And so I just thank you, Lord, for coming in and giving us your message and allowing us to share the word of your book and the teachings and understandings. And may God bless you all. Thank you.